Expressing your individual contribution. Can you wait for the right timing that will allow your contribution to be accepted? Or will you hold back out of the fear that it will be rejected? Empowering yourself and your unique direction in life. Do you have the patience to hold on to this energy until you know what direction to go? Or will you waste this energy looking for others to tell you what your direction should be? What ways of using your vital energy are really satisfying for you? Being yourself and not wanting to be interfered with. These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for May 15th to 20th, 2026 bring. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margo Fraser. Well, after all the busyness that we've had over the last few cycles, we get a bit of a break this cycle with just a few moon transit channels and minimal changes as well in the long-term transits. So I hope through all the busyness, you were able to stay grounded in your own design. Once again, we have two individual traits that are being activated by the sun and earth, which could be mutative and empowering. So let's dive in now. This cycle begins on May 15th at 1:40 a.m., going until the 20th at 9:44 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Universal Time Coordinates. This is coming in on May 15th at 11:54 p.m., going until the 21st at 3:54 a.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations as they are 70% of the conditioning field. The Sun has moved into gate 8, the individual trait of contribution, also called holding together in the throat center. It has a keynote that says the basic worth realized in contributing individual efforts to group goals. It's in the same stream as gate 14, our Earth's position, and is the expression in the throat of your individual contribution to the whole. The voice of this trait says, I know I can or I know I can't make a contribution. And it's through your individuality to that group effort. Because what's coming through is potentially mutative, it needs to be explained well to others. So, this is what following your strategy and authority allows, ensuring that you've taken time to make that contribution in a way that can actually be taken up by others. Remember that the individual traits want to bring through the spark. And that spark could get taken up by the tribe and collective. That's when it really catches on fire, so to speak. Depending on your design, you may feel this pressure to contribute, or you may find that you're able to promote somebody else's unique contribution. However, if you blurt out your contribution from this pressure rather than your strategy and authority, it's likely to be to the wrong people at the wrong time and then more likely to be rejected. So there can be fear here of your contribution being rejected, or that in making your individual contribution that you'll lose your individuality. However, the whole point of the individual circuitry is to bring mutation to the collective and to the tribe. The collective and tribal traits can refine and work towards continuous improvement, but there's nothing truly new and mutative that comes through them. So it's really important for individuals to contribute their uniqueness when it's correct, according to strategy and authority. That's really the opportunity that this trait brings. And by the way, if the contribution does get taken up by the tribe or collective, they'll often forget who brought it through. And there may not be a lot of recognition of the impact of the contribution. So you just have to come to terms with that within yourself. The Earth is grounding the Sun's position in gate 14, the individual trait of power skills. It's also called possession in great measure, and it's in the sacral center, that center associated with our vital energy. Its keynote says the accumulation and retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. This brings the vital energy to move in your individual direction and empower your creative expression out into the world. So it's bringing the empowerment in, personal empowerment. Gate 14 points at gate 2, the gate of the receptive and higher knowing in the G center that can receive a pulse of knowing about your individual direction. If you don't have gate 2 in your own design, you need to be patient. Remember that anything you don't have in your chart will have an opportunity to be activated, whether by people that come into your life or through the transit field, through the weather. Impatience could have you wasting this energy on things that are not actually aligned for you. And just a note that we did have gate 2 in the sun's position in early May. So you may have received a pulse of knowing about your direction and next step to take as an individual, but perhaps you didn't have the energy at that time to act on it. This transit could bring that energy to help you take that action. This trait's rooted in the wisdom that money isn't everything. However, the detriment is believing that it is. We tend to think of power in terms of money, but it's really all of your individual resources and doing the work of aligning to what you really enjoy doing. However, because of the perception of power being having a lot of money, this frequency could have you taking stock of where you're at financially or putting money towards things and people you believe will show you your direction rather than allowing your strategy and authority to guide you. Gate 14 is in the sacral center, the center that generates that vital energy, as I mentioned, and it wants to do satisfying work. So if you're doing work that you don't enjoy, that lack of satisfaction could be very amplified this cycle. It's a trait that could help you prune away places where you've been investing your resources that aren't aligned, or could have you scattering your energy and resources out of frustration and impatience. So watch for that. When we look at these two traits together, your individual contribution could be empowered by your individual power skills and resources, and you could get whatever you're working on out into the world. On the other hand, you could also end up spending a lot of money and energy on trying to be heard and trying to make something happen when the timing and maybe even the contribution itself just isn't right. Individual traits always carry the potential to pulse into melancholy. And with these traits, it could be the melancholy that you don't have anything to contribute or you're not being recognized for your contribution. With gate 14, it could be the melancholy that you don't have the necessary individual resources. Okay, let's move into our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact worldwide that way. We have 3 channels being created this cycle, but all by transits of the moon. So they're just going to be little tasters because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. The first comes in on May 15th at 5:52 p.m., going until the 16th at 2:49 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in May 15th at 11:52 p.m., going until the 16th at 8:49 a.m. We've got the moon moving into gate 2. We're just talking about that. The trait of higher knowing and the receptive in the G center. It's connecting with its electromagnetic, our Earth's position, gate 14, the trait of power skills. Together, they create the channel of the beat, a design of the keeper of the keys. This is a channel that empowers you to follow your own direction in life using your individual power skills towards your vision. And you may find that you can use the sacral energy to do satisfying work in a way that empowers others as well. So as you empower yourself, right? This is the sacral center going up to the G center, the center of work, going to the center of love, identity, and direction in life. When you empower yourself, that can be very inspiring to others. It's a generated channel out of the sacral, so it's here to respond to life. It's a channel that could have you change your direction in life. That's the pulse that could come through. That could be great if you follow your strategy in authority, or disastrous if you don't. All right, our next channel comes in May 17th at 10:09 p.m., going until the 18th at 8:03 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 18th at 5:09 a.m., going until 2:03 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 45, the trait of the gatherer in the throat center. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 21, the trait of the hunter and huntress, also the gate of control in the ego center. We also call that the heart center, and it's that motor that brings that willpower. It's being activated by Saturn. Together, they create the channel of the money line, a design of a materialist. And we had this just go out as a short term channel not too long ago. This is the tribal leadership channel where energy is exchanged for matter, for resources, and back again. This is the only true place of materializing in the body graph. The tribal traits bring a theme always of mutual support, having support or not. This channel is focused on resources, whether material or spiritual, and what you can control or not. So you may find that there's more pressure to manage your resources while this is present. The voice of Gate 45 is I have or I don't have. So this is a channel where the voices of the haves and the have nots are expressed. Just be careful that you're not buying things you can't afford out of this ego pressure towards materialism rather than what you really need. There could be a tendency to be over controlling, especially if you don't have that gate 21 in your own design. Our last channel is coming in May 19th at 11:02 a.m., going until 8:10 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming in May 19th at 5:02 p.m., going until the 20th at 2:10 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 39, the trait of the provocateur in the root center. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 55, the trait of spirit and abundance in the emotional center. That one's being activated by the north node of the moon. Together, they create the individual channel of emoting, a design of moodiness. This is going to bring the pressure to find your spirit, your passion, and to gain an awareness of who and what fills your cup, so to speak, and who or what doesn't. It can be quite volatile. It's a very moody channel. Gate 55 has the highest highs and the lowest lows. So there can be outbursts of emotion that come through this channel. There's an acceptance that's called for here of moving through the highs and lows of emotions. It's just part of this channel. And through that acceptance, there can be enormous creative potential that lies here. This is a very acoustic channel. And at the same time, it can filter out what's not relevant to you in the moment. So you may miss what someone says to you. That gate 39 is one of our traits of so-called deafness. The individual melancholy that may pulse in is that you can't find your spirit or there's nothing to be passionate about. All right, that brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something that you have in your own design. And then when the trait moves on, that can be rather confusing to the mind. After all the changes that we had last cycle, it's pretty quiet with the long-term transits other than Jupiter changing lines this cycle. So let's start with the nodes in the transit field. They're what bring the homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see in the world. This is the context that the transit field is bringing. We had the nodes finally change gates last cycle after a very long period where they were creating that 3740 channel of community. Now, keep in mind that there will be an echo per se of this channel frequency since all the babies being born over about the next 3 months from when it went out still have the 3740 in their imprint on the design side. It's so interesting that we have the 3740 moving out as our deeper background frequency in February next year. But we've had this big influx of babies being born since December 22nd to August 12th that are all going to carry this channel. So they may help buffer the change that we're going to go through in that background frequency. But I also think they're really going to need a lot of support in understanding how they operate so they can live as themselves within a new background frequency that's not the channel of community anymore. It's very, very individual. So, little aside there. Now, now what we have is the North Node in Gate 55, the individual trait of abundance and spirit in the emotional center, while the South Node is in Gate 59, the tribal trait of sexuality in the sacral center. Gate 55 brings a context that's about individual spirit. It's moody. It's the most unstable and volatile of the emotional gates. It operates in a spike wave that can seem very even emotionally, but then when triggered, when provoked, can go way up into the highest highs or way down into the lowest lows. This is the glass half empty, glass half full trait where if you can transcend that perspective, it's wow, there's a glass. That's where the abundance lies. There could also be the melancholy of Gate 55 that shows up, that there's no passion out there. And it's an environment that can be mutative. It's an environment that's focused on individuality. It's a moody environment where people are focused on finding their own spirit or not. Gate 59 is part of the channel of mating and intimacy. It's going to bring a context where one on one relationships are highlighted, whether intimate or friendships or business partnerships. It could bring up issues of fertility. We've already seen fertility dropping, and we know with the global cycle shift coming in 2027 that that's going to continue. These nodal gates will be in line 6, so let's look at that more closely. For Gate 55, line 6 is called selfishness. 6 lines are transitional and bring a perception of the whole circuitry. In this case, it's the whole individual circuitry. For the emotional spirit to thrive, the material has to be looked after. But this isn't the materialism of the ego. This is making sure the body is looked after, that it has what it needs so that the emotional spirit can relax and open into being oneself. So this is selfishness. In the exaltation, providing for yourself materially can also benefit others. In the detriment, there's no sharing, and there can be a mean spirit there. Doing work to provide for yourself is very healthy when this frequency is present. As an environment, it's once again going to be very individual focused. For Gate 59, the trait of sexuality, line 6 is called one night stand. Now, don't misunderstand this that, oh, everyone out there is going to be looking for a one night stand. That's the pressure it's going to be. No, 6 lines are looking for something special. It's looking for that soulmate, something beyond, even if it's just for one night, or it could be for an eternity. Again, the 6 line perceives the whole circuit, the whole tribal circuit in this case. So there's an innate understanding that with intimacy comes navigating family, community, providing, gaining, and managing resources. So 6 line here may not enter into intimacy until it really has what it needs. As an environment, the focus is going to be on the one-on-one relationships, but not necessarily taking action and engaging unless there's something more transcendent within it. So you can see how together this is retaining the materialism in a way that we had with the channel of community in our last nodes, but here it's to look after yourself so that your unique emotional spirit can be. So a context of focusing on oneself and potentially finding transcendent partnerships at whatever level that is and for however long it lasts is there. 6 lines also carry trust as a theme. So this is also an environment where people will be looking for who they can trust or not. Okay, moving to our outer planets now. Jupiter sitting in Gate 62, the logical trait of details in the throat center. This is the voice of I think or I don't think. Its keynote says caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. The limitation here is just the pattern, finding the correct pattern. This is logic, what will carry us into the future. It's sitting in line one called routine. This is part of the mental logic process. And routine here is the ability to transcend the boredom of the routine through a rich, endearing fantasy life. The ability to organize the detail through fantasy. That's the exaltation. The process is using your imagination to contemplate the pattern and just sort through, okay, does it work this way? Test it out mentally. Does it work in these different imagined scenarios? So that's what it's talking about when it refers to fantasy there. You've got to go through that to get the details organized. In the detriment, it says rebellion, and it's an enormous waste of energy, the need for expression which ignores the details. This is blurting things out from the pressure of this trait, but without all the details. So it's likely going to be challenged. On May 18th at 1:03 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Jupiter's going to move into line 2 called restraint. Its exaltation says the innate restrictiveness and discipline to comply with and exalt restraint, the discipline necessary for detail work. The detriment says the intellect stymied by severe restraints tends to anxiety and restlessness, the expression of anxiety and restlessness when faced with detail work. Line 2 is the line of projection. It always projects out the trait, even if you're not actually able to provide it at any given time. So this trait brings the possibility to really be in your process doing detail work. Or there can be restlessness and anxiety about not knowing what details are of value. Regardless, there's going to be this projection that others are doing detail work. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Similarly, it could be you projecting it out. If someone asks you what you're working on, you might not be able to tell them because although it looked like you were focused on something, you weren't. So there could be some misunderstandings and friction as a result of that. Saturn sitting in gate 21, the trait of the hunter, the huntress, and of control in the ego center. It's also in line 2 called Might is Right. It has a developmental theme that says the legitimacy of action in response to flagrant and persistent interference. So those are the conditions. If you have to exert control over the small stuff, you're not really in control. So that's why there's a developmental or learning theme here. You use force only when the interference is flagrant and persistent. Now, this is a place where, again, it's projection. We're projecting on the other that they're in control. And it's a place where if you then interfere with them, you could get a very extreme reaction back. Similarly, if you are the one who's focused on something in your process, and someone comes and interferes with you, you may have an extreme reaction to that. And Saturn has a very serious, powerful energy that can really amp up the control here and being disciplined in it. And it could amplify the severe consequences to being interfered with. So you may experience more extreme reactions to others interfering with you, or you interfering with others while this is present. Uranus is sitting in gate 20, the trait of the now and contemplation in the throat center. This is the voice of I am now. It's in line 2 called the dogmatist. So another line 2 here. It has a developmental theme as well that says restrictive and intentionally limited understanding. Now, line 2s are always selective. This is the line as well of the hermit. It can be somewhat antisocial unless called out. So that's why here the innate awareness in the now is restrictive. Now, this trait can be very good with specialty areas where you are meant to have a narrow path and can lead others that want to develop within that specialty area as well. So it's operating in the now, but it's got a very limited perspective. Neptune sitting in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. It's in line 6 called ignorance. Again, the 6th line can see the full individual circuitry, and it's not going to do anything unless there's a good chance that it can reach the outcome of being mutative. Now, This has also a developmental theme that says false innocence betrayed by action. It's a quality, a trait that brings through being able to look at others and their actions and see, is that coming from innocence or is there some motive behind it? You can really see that. Not so good at seeing that within yourself. And with this being activated by Neptune and its veiling quality, that can make it even more difficult. Pluto sitting in gate 41, that collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. It's the fuel and pressure to start a new experience. But at the very beginning, this is about fantasizing about all the experiences that you'd like to have. Eventually, those are going to have to be narrowed down to the one that you truly want to have. It's in line 4 called correction. Another developmental theme here that you learn over time that says successful adaptation to limitation. Now, the limitation is that there's no awareness. This is in the root. So it's just a fuel at this point. And yet, the fourth line has inherent in it, knowing that it needs to get its energy to the other side, that's the place where there can be the potential to fulfill on the experience. It's the place where we can narrow down to what one is being really yearning for. In the exaltation, it really brings the energy and fuel for the adaptation that will be needed to eventually get that experience. In the detriment, there's an expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than correction. It's collective, so you may invite others who want to have the same experience into it. But then there's always compromises that go on, and you may not go through the experience in the same way as if you did it yourself. Sometimes that can bring some frustration in the end. All right, just looking at the transit field overall, this is the third of 4 cycles in a row where we have individual Sun Earth activations, and it's a very strongly individual cycle. We've got the Sun, the Earth, the North Node, the outer planets of Uranus and Neptune, all in individual traits, as well as the inner planet Mars. Mercury's in individual gates until the last day of the cycle, and Venus also starts the cycle in an individual trait. Just keynoting the homogenized pressure here that you may feel and see in the world. It will be to contribute your individual expression through what you know with all the details, eliminating interferences as you use your vital energy towards working on yourself and your direction, which could move you into a new experience within the context of wanting to meet your own material needs so that you can free your spirit and of trying to find those special transcendent partnerships. In the not self world, we're likely to see people blurting out their contributions and what they know uninvited with way too many details that can just bore or overwhelm others, and then being frustrated when it seems to fall on deaf ears or people aren't interested. We'll also likely see people throwing money at problems that just can't be solved that way, trying to find their direction, outbursts at being interfered with, and wanting to start something new and potentially jumping into it way too quickly. The homogenized environment will have a moody, don't interfere with me, individualistic, passionate, melancholic, creative, and empowering or disempowering flavor. And with the 6th line, where people are also figuring out who can and can't be trusted. Other than those 3 short-term moon transit channels, and 2 of those are individual, the transit field's not creating any channels, so not a huge impact there. Once Jupiter moves into the 2nd line on the 18th, we'll have a pretty strong projection field with Saturn and Uranus also being in line too, so that can bring a bit of an antisocial and selective quality. It could have us projecting on each other that, you have all the details sorted. Oh, you're in control and you know in the now, when that may not be true at all. So once again, that could bring some friction. Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus could expand, demand, and sidetrack in these qualities respectively. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you, you can learn from it, but whether there's actually something for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run you. All right, that brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the red and the black about, the different geometric shapes, and so on, feel free to grab my free human design basics mini course. It's at margogfraser.com/human hyphen design. Okay, well, this could be a really great cycle for you to contribute individually to a group effort, if it's correct for you, and bring greater understanding that there's more to personal power than having money. You might become more attuned to what work and what ways of using your vital energy are really satisfying for you, and you could get a boost of energy towards following your own path in life. Watch that fear of rejection isn't holding you back from expressing yourself when your strategy and authority are saying yes. All right, well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.